Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Matters That Matter. I'm Simran and I'm in a conversation with my mentor, Susie Singh. So, today we are discussing self love. In the last video, we spoke about where your efforts of self love should be applied. Today, Susie, I want to ask you, how do we stop being unloving towards ourselves?
So, the very first thing that we must not do is to carry regret and blame in our hearts over a long period of time.
Hmm.
I want to share an example here. Some years ago, I was working with this family, and they just recently lost a young child. They'd lost their son, and they were really, really broken after that experience. And even after months had elapsed and they were trying to work through their grief, the father kept repeating to himself that if only I had been able to rush him to the hospital in time, I could have
Hmm.
saved him. And
Hmm.
of course, the fabric of the family had fallen apart. The husband and wife were falling apart in their relationship. But this man just took it upon himself to blame himself for his son's death. He decided that he was going to leave home and that he was going to go away forever because he felt he was no longer capable of taking care of his family and his other child.
Hmm.
So, this is an extremely unloving thing to do. While it can be very, very difficult, and it's probably one of the hardest experiences, and I'm giving a really extreme example here, but to be able to forgive yourself is really important. Instead of carrying
Hmm.
that burden of grief or the burden of blame on your heart forever and
Hmm.
ever. I
Right.
think there is a internal tendency to idolize self-punishment or self-sacrifice.
Yeah.
There is a feeling that if I punish myself, then I can somehow pay for my ill deed or my error or my mistake.
Hmm.
But the fact
Yeah.
is, none of us ever really make a mistake knowingly.
Hmm.
Most of the errors we commit are
Hmm.
errors that we unknowingly have committed.
Hmm.
So we must begin that process of self forgiveness at the earliest opportunity, because this is one of the heaviest things that the greatest resistance to self love is if I
Hmm.
am blaming myself.
Right.
Unless I break that huge wall that
Hmm.
prevents me from being kind or empathic to myself,
Hmm.
I am not going to be able to engage in any other self love practice. So, this is the first thing. Ask yourself, what is it that I am blaming myself for? And it doesn't matter if it is a small issue or something as remarkably large as I've just shared. But
Yeah.
regardless of that, the earlier we become aware that we are blaming ourselves or that we have this deep regret that we've been carrying in our hearts for the longest, and it is time for me to set that stone down, take it off my chest, forgive
Hmm.
myself for my errors, learn from it. The question I
Hmm.
could ask myself is, that was a really hard lesson.
Yeah.
What would I like to do differently? Like in this father's case, he could have addressed and asked himself, how do I need to look after my other child in a
Hmm.
more vigilant way, perhaps? How can I
Yeah.
be more engaged in this child's life? How can I pour all of the love that I had for my other child also into this child and
Right.
find fulfillment and peace in that rather than taking that whole family apart with his grief?
Right.
So that's the first important barrier that we must overcome, the
Hmm.
unloving practice of blaming ourselves.
Hmm.
This then leads naturally to the second issue, which is most of us, it's very unloving when we repress all our difficult emotions.
Hmm.
And we all do that to certain degrees because we are
Yeah.
conditioned and brought up to believe that we are oversensitive. It's not nice to be oversensitive, and
Yeah.
your emotions are a bad thing.
Hmm.
And that conditioning automatically makes us pretend that we are strong and powerful, and we put on this rock kind of exterior when actually we are bleeding inside.
Yeah.
That again is an unloving practice. So
Hmm.
we must allow ourselves to get in touch with our emotions,
Hmm.
everything that is making us uncomfortable or distressing ourselves, because if
Hmm.
we don't, then it
Hmm.
is likely to show up in our body, because the body never lies.
Right.
And I've had clients who've suffered from fibromyalgia for years. And when we actually worked with all of those things that they were blaming themselves for, that they were negating themselves for, we found that their fibromyalgia disappeared.
Hmm.
There was another very, very remarkable case, and probably the only case of spontaneous and instant healing that I have ever witnessed in my practice. Several years ago, there was this lady who came in, and she had a very traumatic childhood, and she was adopted. She had no idea who her parent was. And so she was feeling ungrounded and had no roots. And we worked with a regression session with her. Uh, in that session, I also noticed that she had these, splits on her wrist, and I happened to very gently inquire. And apparently, she had tried to commit suicide by cutting her wrist, almost 20 odd months ago. They were still red and bruised, and I almost thought she'd done this like the night before or 2 nights before. They looked so raw and recent.
Hmm.
And once we were able to work through that regression, and she went and healed several traumatic incidents, we had a 3.5 hour regression. She called me at the end of 7 hours later that evening. She informed me and she sent me photographs where all her wounds had suddenly aged and become white and healed, and the rawness had closed up. It was remarkable, because somehow her own sense of self-blame, or holding herself responsible and not dealing with those very painful emotions and repressing them, had
Hmm.
not even allowed her body to activate the body's intelligence of healing her. So she was
Right.
denying herself that natural healing.
Hmm.
So that's the kind of miracles that we can actually experience. We've heard of cancer patients having remission, going into remission when they stop blaming themselves for things in their
Hmm.
lives. And so it is really powerful. And I would
Hmm.
urge anyone who is committed to enhancing their self-love to please feel your difficult feelings and work through them,
Hmm.
acknowledge them, don't repress them.
Hmm.
Related to this will be all of your negative beliefs, all of your denial of yourself, all of your running
Hmm.
down of yourself. I am I'm a horrible person. I am not pretty enough. I don't look good enough. I am lazy. I procrastinate. I have not achieved anything in my life. The list is endless. We've all been there. We know it.
Yeah.
But what do we do about it? Besides perpetuating it and
Hmm.
reinforcing it, do we actively stop and say, that's not a very kind way to treat myself?
Yeah.
I may on a day when I'm feeling good talk about, oh, I am going to start these self-love practices.
Hmm.
But can I be in that practice when I'm feeling terrible about myself? That is the acid test. Can I stop blaming myself? Can I stop running myself down? Can I stop thinking of myself in ways that dishonor the person and the soul that I am? That is
Right.
important. And
Hmm.
lastly, something that is really detrimental to our own soul is to compare ourselves to others.
Yeah.
We fall into that comparison trap. We
Hmm.
are always trying to feel not enough, because all of social media is showing us how brilliant the lives of everyone else is, how accomplished everyone else is, and how little I am.
Yeah.
And I remember one Buddhist monk, when I met him and I asked him the secret of happiness, he very succinctly said to me, he said, no more, no less. I was told that the minute you place yourself above someone and you feel I'm better than that person, then you fall into the trap of the ego mind and inflation takes over.
Yeah.
Whenever you put yourself below someone, then you
Mm.
are actually minimizing yourself and you feel, I'm not enough. I can
Mm.
never be who he is. And all
Mm.
my lacks come surging forth. So the important thing is always to view every person that we meet in our life as not more and not less, but equal. And the great thing is that when we do encounter people who we think are more accomplished or in some ways better than us, rather than thinking of them as superior to us, we can look at them as inspirations.
Right.
Wow, there's something I
Mm.
can learn here, and there's
Mm.
something I'd like to do this too. And then
Mm.
drive and turn that energy into a self motivating drive for self improvement.
Mm.
Because if I can improve myself, I will do it only if I believe in myself and if I'm willing to love
Mm.
myself. Because then I am
Right.
building myself up, I'm not breaking myself down. So these are some of the unloving practices that we
Mm.
must commence our effort at self love with. In our next video on self love, I'll be sharing another very important practice that is pivotal to practicing self love.
Thank you so much, Susie, for, I think, very briefly and with very vivid examples, teaching us and making us understand how we can stop being so unloving towards ourselves. I'm sure everybody is going to relate with these examples. If you find this video helpful, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Thank you for watching, and we will see you soon.